Hello, everyone, and welcome to our viewers and our esteemed guests tonight to another episode of Spoken and Heard. I am Haley Mitchell-Haugen. I'm the founding editor of the quarterly poetry journal Sheila-Na-Gig Online, now entering our 10th year of publication, and the small press Sheila-Na-Gig editions with more than 60 anthologies, individual poetry collections, and chapbooks published since 2017. These projects fall under the umbrella of our 501c3 nonprofit arts organization, Sheila-Na-Gig INC, striving to uplift new and established poets everywhere. I hope you'll check us out at sheila-na-gigblog.com, where I encourage you to read the journal and, of course, to support our authors by buying their books. It is my honor tonight to offer the online platform for Kari Gunter-Seymour's Spoken and Heard. I'm going to introduce Kari. If you don't know her, most people do. Kari Gunter-Seymour is the Poet Laureate of Ohio, just finishing up her term now, and the author of 3 award-winning collections of poetry, including her latest, Dirt Songs from Eastover Press in 2024, and A Place So Deep Inside America It Can't Be Seen from Sheila-Na-Gig Editions, the winner of the Ohio Poet of the Year Award in 2020. Kari is the executive director of the Women of Appalachia Project and the editor of its anthology series, Women Speak. Her work has been featured in American Book Review, Poem a Day, World Literature Today, the New York Times, and lots of other places. So great to have you here again, Kari. So thank you and welcome.
Oh gosh, thanks so much, Haley. I'm so grateful to you and the wonderful Sheila-Na-Gig for providing this platform for these events. And as always, I want to send out a huge thank you to the Ohio Arts Council for sponsoring so many seasons of Spoken and Heard. I want to welcome to those who are here with us this evening. It's always so wonderful to see your faces. And also hello to all who will stream later on social media and YouTube. So tonight is the last event of the fall season, and I'm hosting Cambodian American poet and novelist Bunkong Tuon and Southwestern Ohio's own Sara Wagner. As a heads up, we'll do a short Q&A after the readings for those of you with us tonight. So jot down your questions and be ready to enter them in the chat at the end of the readings. I also want those of you here to feel free to use the chat to praise our featured guests tonight. It's always a wonderful feeling. Most of you here tonight are poets or novelists or some sort of writer, singer, songwriter perhaps, and you know how wonderful that feels because we don't see faces, so it's wonderful to be able to see a few of those words in the chat window. Just as a reminder, you can find the links to all of my guest books on my website, which is KariGunter-Seymourpoet.com. Just click on Spoken and Heard. I'll also be telling you where you can find the books tonight verbally. So let's begin. Bunkong Tuon is a Cambodian American writer, Pushcart Prize-winning poet, and professor who teaches at Union College in Schenectady, New York. His work has appeared in World Literature Today, Copper Nickel, New York Quarterly, Massachusetts Review, Diode, and Verse Daily, among others. He's the author of several poetry collections. In 2024, he published What Is Left, a greatest hits chapbook from Jakar Press, and Gong Khmer, his debut novel from Northwestern University Press, Curbside Books. He is the poetry editor at Cultural Daily. You can find What Is Left at jakarpress.com, and you can find his novel on amazon.com. Also, his website, bunkongtuon.com. Bunkong and I sort of know each other because of his editorship at Cultural Daily and various online situations, which is just so prevalent these days, as we know. I'm so thrilled to have him here and excited for all of you to hear his work. Welcome, Bunkong.
A pleasure. An honor of being here. Can you hear me okay? I feel like my son is screaming in the background. I hope that's okay. Okay, that's great. Again, a pleasure being here, an honor. Um, sort of reading with Sarah, and thank you, Kari and Haley, for organizing this. Um, oh, good. I'm glad we can't hear him screaming. That's wonderful. Thank you, Robbie. Um, I'm going to start reading 4 to 5 poems from this chapbook, What Is Left. And then I'll read 4 newer poems after that. What is left is sort of a kind of an introduction to some of the themes and characters that are prevalent in my work, mainly my family. So I'll start with a poem called The Carrying, and it's about my uncles and aunts and grandmother, what it was like for them to sort of packed up and leave Cambodia. There. I'm sorry, sort of a little bit. All right, let me just get this there. The carrying. I am what is left after the war that orph. I am what is left after the war that orphaned a generation. And what is left is knowing that what remains is worth carrying. The way the earth carried our tired bodies, how the moon kept still while we crossed jungles. Leaves whispered prayers, and sunlight kept us warm. The way Lok Ye carried me on her back, the back that carried the land and fog, the hungry mouth of children and grandchildren, the withered body of her husband, the grime of a widow who raised 7 children all on her own. The way rivers carried our sorrows, and how my aunts carried the death of their youth, cradled to their chests like broken dolls. How we all carried memories of my mother, how my father carried himself after we had left. At night, in the refugee camps, my uncle cradled hope that was as real as the belief that no matter what came before, a life was still a life. Then they turned to their corners of dirt and wept. Uh, can you still hear me okay? There's no weird noise in the background. All right, that's good. Sorry about that. Um, so that was about my uncles and aunts and grandparents. This one is about my mom. I don't really have a lot of memories about her. This is the most primal of memory, and it's about her on her deathbed. And I call this as my origin poem in terms of it's sort of the reason why I became a writer and a poet. I write to remember and to honor and to suture the wounds of the past. Um, Under the tamarind tree, the child sits on the lap of his aunt under the old tamarind tree outside the family home. The tree stands still, quiet, indifferent. The house sways on stilts. Monks in saffron robes and nuns with shaved heads, lips darkened with betel nut stain, sit chanting prayers for the child's mother. Incense perfumes the hot, dry air. There emerges a strange, familiar song between the child and his aunt that day, a distant one, melodic but harsh, as if the strings are drawn too tight. Each time the child hears prayers coming from the house, he cries. Each time he cries, the aunt, a girl herself, pinches the boy's thigh. Um, this third poem is about my father. About 2015 or so, I led a term abroad in Vietnam, and that was an opportunity for me to kind of sneak away for a bit to meet my my father's side of the family. And I grew up without knowing my father or my mother. So when I was in this sort of area of Vietnam, which was originally belonged to Cambodia, but with France changing the border before they left, that area became Vietnam. It's the sort of the Mekong Delta area, what the Cambodian people call Khmer Krom. And when I was there, it was pretty amazing to see where my father grew up, where he slept, where he went to the market, the open market. But I was also trying to get stories about him because I wanted to know what he was like. Um, and this is one of the stories, and it's a little bit graphic, so be warned. The poem is called Debt. My father walked up to the Khmer Rouge after they killed the children and opened their stomachs to eat the livers. My father got down on his knees, clasped hand overhead, and begged them for a sliver of a victim's liver so that I would not starve. While everyone was sleeping, my father snuck into the kitchen, stole a branch of coconuts, and buried them in the woods. Each time I cried from hunger, he disappeared into the night, dug up a coconut, gave me the juice to drink, and with dirt-encrusted fingers, spooned out the flesh for me, his only child. This one is for my daughter. Um, Under the Khmer regime, love was forbidden, especially family love, because it was a threat to the sort of authority of the regime. So when I became a father for the first time with the birth of my daughter, I saw her as a symbol of resistance, of going against what the Khmer Rouge forbid, which was to have family and to have love. So this poem was dedicated to my daughter. It's called Moon in Khmer, and her name is Chanda, which is translated as Moon in Khmer. Moon in Khmer, you are light when the sun is punched out and darkness reigns. You are the antidote to what came before. Black blood, black heart, hands tied, kneeling before a ditch of human bones. Your laughter pierces the silence of night that bore witness to the once blood-soaked land. Your existence is resistant to the genocide that orphaned your father and drove his family out of the homeland. You are love against the hate of the Khmer Rouge. This is the meaning of your name, Chanda. This is how to defeat Pol Pot. So that one was for my daughter, and uh, about 2018, 2019, I was writing a whole book for my daughter because I was a first-time father and had lots of inspirations. And and then my son came in 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And my wife said, you got to write um, a book of poems for your son too. It's not fair. I wasn't able to do it, but this is my greatest hit collection, and the collection concludes with the arrival of my son. So this is for him, and he's the one who's making all that noise. If you can't hear me, that's good. But if you can, I'm sorry that that you can hear that. And the poem is about I'm sure Sarah and others could sort of relate to this. Waiting for that moment for the arrival, of the child, the birth of the child. And this is about that wonderful period. It's called Letter to My Unborn Son, for thee. I can tell you about strength, how the sun warms our skin, how the moon turns tide, the way your mother abstained from coffee, watches what she eats, her body, a temple in your honor. And I can tell you about beauty. The bird with red bushy tail skips from one rose bush to rose bush, sings sweet melody for all to hear, unhinged by the joy of morning light. Your sister caresses her mother's belly, presses her red cheek on it and listens, whispers tenderness to baby brother. But when the white dove spread its wing and soars over the hospital, and the leaves are still, and the day glows soft bright like baby skin, and you, dear heart, shake from exhaustion your journey into light. Oh, how my body trembles with the weight of you. So that's the conclusion of the chapbook, What is Left. I'll read some newer poems. Um, this one I'm not particularly proud of. It's I have two half brothers, one in Thailand and one in Cambodia. The children that came after me, they're my father's children after my mother died, and he remarried. And my grandmother took me away from that sort of situation and took me with her when we fled Cambodia to the United States. But I still have sort of connection with my half brothers. So this one is about that, I think, but it's not really about that. It's called Mother. My stepbrother messages me on Facebook again. Every time I'm in trouble, I turn to you, he writes. You're asking me to help your mother. What he really means, he's asking me to help his mother. A mistake, I know, but my heart won't let it go. And my dear mother, who is long dead, awakens in my head, dying once again on her bed, dying from sickness and starvation, dying from fear that she's dying, and leaving her only child to this world where darkness reign and killing is the new God. My mother dies over and over in my head, and I have no control over that matter. My stepbrother is asking me for money. His mother is dying, don't I understand? I send him money because I am in America. I send him money for the woman my father married after my mother died, the woman who gave my father children, the woman who took my father away. That's not a good poem to read. I'm not sure why I chose that. Um, I feel like I'm getting old and there's still stuff that I thought I was able to work through in my writing, but they still show up. But I'm also getting old and at at least old in my context. I'm in my 50s. And lately I've been thinking about the dead and praying a lot, not in the religious sense, but more in the spiritual sense. And I sort of connect poetry and prayer as a similar act in my world. This one is called Poems or Prayers. No matter the day or the state of the world, no matter the night or your state of mind, whisper it under your breath. until your lips tremble. Let the magic electrify your tongue swirl inside you until your body glows fluorescent, like the time you had a fever and no one knew what to do except Ogie, who wiped your damp forehead with a cloth. She closed her eyes and whispered polite, combing her fingers through your hair. You receive her Buddha light. Awaken. You are ready for the living again. I don't usually write form poetry, but this is my attempt to do one. It's something called a mirror palindrome, and I think a lot of my poems I've been writing lately has to do with kind of ars poetica, so trying to explain what I do in my own work. This is called After the War. I speak to the dead, for they are my friends. They talk to me and get me out of bed. People see me walking around the bend. I'm talking to ghosts in my head again. After the war, I turned to ghostwriting. The ghost speaks, and I can't stop my crying. In poetry, the neighbor girl is alive again. We play marbles, hopscotch, and kick the can. My dead parents ask again and again, why is war still happening? I listen to the dead, for they are my parents. In the land of the living, no one listens. No one listens in the land of the living. I talk to the dead, for they are my parents. The dead wake up and ask me questions. Don't they listen? Don't they understand? The dead play hopscotch and kick the can. My friend is alive when I pick up my pen. The dead speak and I listen. That's how my writing life begins. The ghosts are chirping little wrens. I take a stroll around the bend. They are the reason I get out of bed. I speak to the dead, they are my friends. This is the last poem. I am concluding it with a poem about my son. He's a he's a wonderful, smart, joyful, healthy kid. But for those of you who follow me on Facebook, he's also a pain in the butt. He's he was born at the beginning of the pandemic, and and that was a rough period. And I'm sure a lot of parents know this in terms of we said implicitly or explicitly to stay away from others because they might carry something that could hurt you. And he had a difficult time adjusting to school, and have to go to speech therapy and so on. So this poem is about that sort of time. And I have this ritual with him. I take him to Dunkin' Donut to get donuts. It was summer, take him for ice cream. And when I do these things, I think about my own sort of childhood and what my father would have done for me. So the poem's about that. Eating donuts with my son at Dunkin'. This is our ritual. My son eats his donut, and I marvel at him. It is our post-pandemic ritual, a reward for going to school, for seeing his speech therapist. I too was school afraid, world afraid, afraid to be separated from my Lokier. Outside, school children get off the bus. Some run, Some walk, laughing and chattering, backpacks bopping toward home. One of the school kids runs to his dad, who bends down and hugs him. The father and son are walking down the sidewalk, talking like old friends. And the wind blows, clouds moving across the cold sky, brown leaves swirling under an oak tree. What else is there but to think about my father on this autumn day? He who was taken away from me 40 years ago after the war. Was I a marvel to him? I have no memory of being held, sitting on his lap. No memory of being lifted to the sky in sweet fatherly pride. I wish I had something, anything, so I can father my own son without this empty shadow, large, impenetrable, aching. My son turns the donut around with his hand, marvels at the glazed Saturn. He lowers his head and closes his eye as he licks the chocolate frosting. This is our ritual. My son eats his donut, then I marvel at him. That's it. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Bunkong. That was extraordinary. And I really thank you for your willingness to be so vulnerable, not only in your work, but in the discussion between poems. And it's you have a gift because you don't get maudlin, you just talk about it. And it takes a good bit of courage to do that. So thank you so much. I love the idea that for you, love is an act of resistance. That is just stunning. Thank you so much. So our next poet is the amazing Sara Moore Wagner. Sara is the author of 3 prize-winning full-length books of poetry, Lady Wingshot, winner of the 2023 Blue Lynx Prize, Swan Wife, Cider Press Review, Editor's Prize 2022, and Hillbilly Madonna, Driftwood Press Manuscript Prize 2022, and of 2 chapbooks, Tumbling After, published by Redbird Chapbooks 2022. Boy, 2022 is a very busy year for you. And Hooked Through 2017. She is also a 2022 Ohio Arts Council Individual Excellence Award recipient and a 2021 National Poetry Series finalist and the recipient of a 2019 Sustainable Arts Foundation Award. Her poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in many journals and anthologies, including Gulf Coast, Smartish Place, Waxwing, Beloit Poetry Journal, and Northern Appalachian Review, among many others. In 2023, she became the managing poetry editor of Driftwood Press. You can find Lady Wingshot at WSU Press, at wsu.edu. Hillbilly Madonna is at Driftwood Press. Now, Sara and I met through our mutual poetry friend, the amazing and wonderful Pauletta Hansel, and our paths have crossed on many occasions, off and on, ever since, though I, for one, wish they were crossing more often. Sara is truly a genuine, kind, and giving human being, and Ohio is so very lucky to call her ours. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much, Kari. And thank you to Bunkong. Those poems were just incredibly moving and beautiful. And I'm really glad to be here reading with you. And thank you, Kari, for having me. So I'll just go right in. I am going to read a few from Lady Wingshot, and then similarly to Bunkong, a few new things. I was going to read some more political new things, but then you have inspired me to be a little bit more vulnerable, so we'll go there after this. But Lady Wingshot is, those of you who have not heard me read before, is a book that I wrote about Annie Oakley. So in 2020, I got really obsessed with Annie Oakley, and I read 1,000 books about her, it feels like, and I visited her museum and got to know her researchers, and I really got taken over in some ways by her story, and it really it spiraled out for me to being the story of America, and really kind of what we value, the worship of guns in this country, the way that we see the past is built on a series of carefully crafted lies, basically, put forth by people like Buffalo Bill and Annie Oakley herself in many ways. And so this book explores guns in America, the erasure of the frontier and the Wild West, and the way that that went into other countries. But it also looks at women. So Annie Oakley is the first female American superstar. While she represented power, there are some things that I found to be a little bit complicated about her story. And so I'm going to read you some, because of what's been happening in the news with women and the way that women are defined and given agency and believed. I thought maybe that would be the angle I focused on here for this reading. So this one's called Truest in Heart and Aim. Here's what I do. I put my eye to the rifle sight, or I look in the mirror, over my shoulder, the glint of the sun, how it separates. I use my eyes, both eyes. I use both eyes, one on the target and one aimed high, higher, fire, and it always hits. I don't know why, or I do know. I've kept open both eyes and closed those lower senses. I'm clothed from the tips of my toes to the top of my head. Every inch of me covered in the Texas heat, so that only I touch me, not even a breeze. Simple and modest, undistracting, modest as a girl can be with both eyes open, firing at a glass ball blown out blue as God. I am a God girl, they say, and I say, because I'm clothed simply, dull as a horse, majestic in that natural draping which exposes nothing but these two round jewels I keep open wide. Watch, in the evening I take it all off, drip with sweat and splattered oxen shit, unwrap me, golden and glisten. I am all baseness now, smell of musk and piss and onion. I take out my eyes too, one by one, into the tub of suds, and we bob and lather until I am my eyes, and my eyes are the body, cleansed together like this. Oh, tongue, what you do, too, to keep us all in and orderly, to let just the bullet push through. Ritual oneness, smile wide, and be nothing but these eyes. This next one's called Whitewashing Frank Butler. Any of you who've seen Annie Gets Her Gun, Frank Butler was her husband. And actually the move in the play, she lets him win, but she never did that. She actually beat him, which is funny. That they changed that, but seems, how it goes. This is called Whitewashing Frank Butler. He is a salesman, can talk you into a bigger barrel, can weave a tale with you as Annie Oakley, sharp-eyed and light and little as she. Build him into the man you want him to be. Shadow behind that girl. How ordinary it all seems. Blue-eyed boy cutting steak across the table from a living star, orbiting. He'd shoot beside her sometimes, let her shoot things from him, the end of a cigarette. Help me name what he was at 28, bowing to a 15-year-old Annie. Common? It was a common thing then, they say. We all saw our little grandmothers wither like this. Mention how she did not wither. Mention his divorce, but briefly. Never names, never children, never Henrietta, whose only heritage is a timeline in Annie's story. It's widely disputed when the divorce happened. It's largely unknown her size in comparison to Annie. How tall, how wide, how dull her eyes. How old was she, and where did she bear down in a bed and birth a line of Frank stretching into now? Aren't we all bastards of something, fatherless girls and boys? And remember, it was common. Was it common? It was common. That violence. A woman left, a girl taken over. It's your misfortune and none of my own. It was called the Hog Ranch, not for the shanks of pork sliced thick beside beans and tin plates. This joke is the hogs were the women. For a short time, Martha Canary, Calamity Jane, earned her life there. Fatherless and penniless girl. It's a meager way to keep a mouth fed. Remember the Oregon Trail, Fort Laramie with its two-dimensional miners and cowboys falling under the skirts of those depraved babies like Calamity Jane, just 14? There have always been two ways for a girl to go. At the one end, you're a child, and the other, parlor houses, bordellos, and cribs, called cribs for being small and holding the lowest of these fair but frail sweethearts, soiled little doves, as they called them, as they etched onto their graves on the bottles of laudanum. Calamity Jane wanted a blue sage wedding, a bed unmanned, to wear her tailored pants and recline under that western sky, free. Later, she told the newspapers, "My baby will be president." A little prayer for her only daughter, a pile of banknotes, treasure won and shot for, mining pans full of gold, a cradle of gold she'd rock her in, back and forth with the barrel of her long gun. Okay. It was interesting to me as I was studying, and right now my work is kind of blending Annie Oakley and the Wild West and Bram Stoker together, but all of the people who were alive at the same time that you don't really think of. This is called Childish, Envious, and Devious, Annie Oakley to Freud. And there's an epigraph from Freud that says, "I'm nothing short of delighted by my little woman's unskillfulness." Dear doctor, I know you are prone to fits of nerves, especially at the more visceral openings of nature, a split carcass on a table, cadaver of ribs. When I was a girl, I shot a squirrel out of the tree and skinned it. It is my nature to be precise, to tear the skin away first. I know this will upset you, is why you didn't have a stomach for medicine, couldn't hold any shriveled hand or nurse a body back to health. Me either. To be honest, I had no interest in nursing or teaching, couldn't weather those lower, more tedious pursuits of feeding and washing. It's the same, though you won't admit it. I was born when you were just 4 years old. When my father died, you were 10. I watched him cough out the whole field behind our house, cough so loud you maybe heard it, piercing and high-pitched as a gunshot, heard it. Your brothers and sisters heard it. Like my mother, yours bowed, child in womb, over and over. And yes, you were firstborn, and I was sixth, and that means something to you, and to anyone. You carried the weight of your mother, of your siblings on your shoulders, but not like I did. I was sixth, but I fed her. When I couldn't feed her, I was sent away. How did you love your mother? How often did you see her undress in the late evening, not just take off her clothes, but leave her body, her gender a tight ribbon on the finger? Did she unwrap that? Because I am poor, because my father left nothing but a gun, which is not indicative of any longing in me, is not a phallic-shaped yearning for a father, is a gun. How much did you love your mother, that perfect glass of water pouring her own dreams into you, which you would interpret for her? Here is my dream. I am standing on the gate near your house. I've got my eye on you, precise and sure. I know what your head would look like, what it would do if split open. You don't know what I am, what I can do with a table or trigger, straddle and upend. Tell me what my place is, little wife that I am, little woman, side saddle riding into your kitchen, where your wife has laid out your papers and your pen. Draw me. I'll draw what I know. Aim high and straight, and that backfire and noise will echo back around the world to the little house where my sisters are sewing their own new jackets. I will never want a child. I will never let a man make me his. Not really. Not ever. And then, what will you call me? I have so many names already. I have given myself a new name. Not father's, not husband's, mine. Beat me at it. Let me see you try. Okay, so that's the Annie ones, focusing on the most angry feminist of them. And now I'll switch to something a little more personal here, even though, you know, that work was personal for me in some ways. But I'm taking students to Ireland, which I've talked to Kari about a little bit. But I've been researching Irish myth, and particularly about changelings. And Lady Jane Wilde, Oscar Wilde's mother, has a book called Ancient Legends, Mystic Charms, and Superstitions of Ireland, where she talks about how changelings are, you know, originally hated by the family, by the neighbors. Even if they're accepted into the family, they're odd and weird. But if you're the child of a changeling or a fairy, then sometimes you're just really more beautiful, but you get willful and strange and moody, and you want solitude. And what this reminded me of, and what there are studies on, is how closely this is linked to autism, which is something that my child has, level 1. And I also, through the experience of understanding that about her, I have come to understand my own neurodiversity and the sadness of my own childhood, which led to, you know, not very safe behavior, which I talk about in my book, Hillbilly Madonna, some. But I've been writing poems then about changelings and about neurodiversity, so I'm going to read a few of those. This one's called Because a Sharp Girl Must Be a Changeling. I was born unusual, dirt caked inside my skeleton, packed so tight I resembled a real child. The hard lines of my face like my grandmother's, who was born without arms, who, when given to her mother, sprouted leather wings instead. Fully grown, she could not hold her child for the flapping. She learned to bake large loaves of bread, ice cinnamon buns, to hang them from every branch of every tree. Grandmother, come to me. Come show me how to be a girl in this deformed world, to carry the silence of turning inside me like a blister in a shoe. Wouldn't you know she was raised in a house built on a raft from bones and stone, sawed and leveled bricks placed one after the other, walling her in. The men say, put her over the fire just to see. And the women say, bake her a cake in a thimble just to see. The children watch with their marbled eyes that roll back into their bodies, which are all full of earth too, which move with the rhythms of the turning moon, whose rivers reflect the open face of the sky. Unmasking. It's hard to say how I became what I was meant to be. First, a throne put upon, encrusted. I held on tight, was poured into an envied shape. I was that girl who stood up slowly, my animated gold into limbs. I skipped to the deepest part of the water because I saw myself there, going away. I was a great white snake or girl, a two-headed, undefinable creature of night, and when I woke, I was beautiful. I have taken so many things from my mother. I, mosquito, my mouth is red. I've learned how to live by becoming something else, a shadow of the object cast to be a comfort. I bristle. I'm barbs. I do not wipe the sweat from any brow. What will you assume I want? My daughter was born unshaped, amorphous bit of dawn I tried so hard to shove into my father's tackle box. Like me, she is afraid of everything and nothing. Can't keep herself inside herself. She wipes her palms over her stomach, and there, jewels and bits of bread the birds come to collect. I'm saying she is different too. Has a harder time bearing the earth, the heaviness of mourning and conversation. She lives in an idea and glimmer, is all tinsel and light. My daughter has a problem being seen as she is, a folk motif, like a lamb who is really a girl, who is really a lamb, who is whose mother was a fish, whose father was the ocean, whose singular spot on the chest is a mark for something else. And I'll read one more here. This is called On Trying to Be Everything. When I buckle my daughter into her seat, I ask her, what do you want to be? Teeth, bone. What is the history of a face? One day, the moon comes, and then a vein blue as morning. It's time to go out like it isn't my fault. It is. I've packed chicken and a long list, extra socks and another dress. I am not messy, not yet undressed and naked-faced in the light, but you can still see the outline of my skull, blood in the eyes, a grave of a mouth, painted purple as a meadow in the spring. I am a toothy whirlpool, a golden comb. I am my face. What will she carry past this lake of childhood? Who will give her a shiny tail like coins? Thank you.
Goodness, I had to catch my breath, Sarah. Oh my goodness. So you and your Annie poems have always fired me up, but now these new poems, oh my gosh, just incredible. I love that thought. My grandson is on the spectrum. He's autistic. The idea of thinking in terms of autism as, mythological changelings is a stunning way of approaching that. And I love that so much. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So I better turn my chat on here again. Does everybody's saying how much they love you both. So I hope you're seeing those comments. But this is the time where I usually ask everyone to turn on not everyone, Sara and Bunkong and I will have our cameras on and our microphones on, and we'll do a little Q&A. So does anybody in the audience tonight have a question? Type it now or forever hold your peace, as they say, because I have questions if you do not. Okay. So I'm not seeing anything right now. And Haley, could you help me watch the chat as well? Thank you. Because I'm going to start with a question for both you, Sara and Bunkong, because I think both of you have used your poetry as a method of healing. And I'd really love to talk about that. I'm just going to leave that open for you all to decide the parameters of that question. So
I guess for me, I started writing poems as an act of survival, like, the quote goes and everything that Adrienne Rich says, it breaks the silence. I feel like that's why I originally went to poetry, because I had all of this anger, and there's a lot of trauma and things in my family history that people just don't talk about. There's a lot of silence. So poetry originally for me was the way for me to express that and to not let it kind of devour me. And I feel like it still is in a lot of ways. I don't just write when I feel that way, but yeah, that's why I don't ever stop. Yeah.
I probably have the same kind of response and story. Growing up, we didn't talk about what happened. So there was this sort of silence, and it's a part of the sort of my understanding of the past. And writing became sort of something that I had to do. First, to talked about things that people didn't talk about. Did my own research in terms of being a college student, and then started to write. For me at first, and then I started to have a certain understanding of what my elders went through. So it becomes a way of honoring and and paying homage to them. So that's how I started. And I don't think, and I think, I'm sure Sara has, something to say about this. I think it always lives with you. Writing helps, but it's always there. I don't think it could be like you can work through and everything is a clean slate. I think, there's something called a scar and it's just there. But it helps. It helps. But I think with my kids now, uh, now is writing is a kind of celebration and joy in terms of, kind of an honor to be their parent. And also writing as a way to look at the future. Because I started with my writing sort of, I wouldn't call it a career, but my writing sort of need to look at the past. The past was this sort of haunting present. And then after a book or two, and then with the kids coming along, it becomes it becomes celebration and joy. And writing now, I think I'm more careful with my craft, and I find that writing, there's a certain pleasure with language and sound and putting things in the right order, and so on, and exploring different forms and so on. But it's changed over the years. I began as I think as a poet of loss and grief and all that awful stuff. But I still, you can tell that some of the stuff still have an impact on me when I read them out loud.
Mhm.
But it's
So
changed. It's
true.
changed, and I like that change because
Mhm.
I like that change, and I like my family, my kids. You
Yeah,
know,
obviously.
it's been
And we're
good.
so
It's been
glad you have them. Yeah, yeah.
nice. So
Awesome.
it's
Yeah,
a
I
change.
think I tell my inmates, I work with Ohio prisons, and I tell them, this will really help you to just write these things down and think of them over and over and over again. For myself personally, it works way better than any drug I could ever take. So, um, so we do have a couple questions from our audience, which I'm so excited about. So it says for both of you, what has most surprised you about your writing career?
Hmm. I mean, as Kari mentioned, 2022 was a very surprising year for me. It all happened at once, but I think what surprised me is I was working for so long before that to, get somewhere, and then, having two books at the same time, all of a sudden you're like an established writer, but it doesn't mean anything. So it's very like, I don't know, the writing, I guess the thing is, like, it surprises me that I have to not think too much about my writing career to stay writing, because if you think too much about it, you'll go insane. It doesn't make any sense, the writing world. Yes.
I think I'm pretty shy and awkward in person. I like to kind of I'm not that open. Even though my job involves sort of me standing in front of the classroom teaching but that's the persona. But the real me, I'm pretty quiet. So it's really fascinating that people respond to my work. Uh, it's just because in the who I am, I can't string words together, as you can tell by right now. But I'm just surprised that people listen and receptive and open. So that definitely was a surprising aspect because some of the stuff are really personal and they're connected to a particular history and particular people. And I wish if there's anything that I wish there were more of, Cambodian American readers reading my work. I think that's like the saddest part for me is I don't have that. It's really, I don't know why that is, but that would be. So there are the two surprises there. One that, yeah. Anyway, I'll stop rambling.
It's all good. It's all good. George wanted to know, Bunkong, if you might talk just for a minute about the difference between writing your poems and then writing your novel.
Poem is for me is just it captures so intensely and intimately how I feel about things. So is manageable in terms of putting it down there, on the page and then going back and editing and playing and revising. And it's really fun. It's my preferred mode of writing just because of the kids and my crazy schedule. Wasn't it Raymond Carver who said I'm a short story writer because I don't have time.
Mhm.
I think I choose poetry because I don't have time. But it's also pretty intense and fun and so on. The novel is a pain in the butt to write. Lots of research, making sure that there's no plot holes or make sure things are sort of accurate and so inconsistent. Um, it has its own sort of rhythm, but you can make mistakes more and you can hide because of the length of the work. But with poetry, at least for me, you just have to be really tight and careful. So the craft is much more intensified, but it's supposed to capture what is it? I've heard all this sort of people saying that the lyric poetry is a poet's attempt to stop time, right? Some of the stuff that I wrote 6, 7 years ago, I still go back and you can sort of transport me back to that time period when I wrote the poem and how I was feeling and thinking. So I enjoy that more, but I still want to write another longer piece just because we need we Cambodian Americans need a space for our literature. So I still want that, but I don't know when I'll do it again. Maybe 10 more years, but by that time,
Get your kids raised up a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah, so you have a little more time.
little.
Sarah, have you oh, I'm sorry, Bunkong.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Sarah, have you done any short story work or anything?
Yeah, I'm actually like 50,000 words into a novel right now too. So what Bunkong is saying is very interesting to me. And as you're saying, mine's built on research. So I started with like, I don't even know how many pages of research I have now. It's probably longer than the novel itself. But I'm interested in historical things in the Victorian period and all of that. So it just has spiraled out. But I'm in it. So you're right, though. It's very, I have to let myself not care about every word and comma and think, it's much more time intensive. It's much more, like you're saying, research, but then I cannot think on the sentence level as I do with poetry, or I just won't. I just have to be like, don't look at it. Yeah. I don't know if I can do it yet, though, so I'm not an expert on it. You are, but I'm trying.
I think that's wonderful. First of all, at Bunkong, you've actually accomplished that, and that you're tackling it, Sarah, on top of your parenthood and your teaching, and just all the things that both of you are involved in to step aside and write a novel. I mean, that's just really inspiring. So thanks so much to both of you for that. To me, it just seems like way too many words. Oh my gosh. So, but I don't want to say I'd never do it, but right now it seems very daunting to me. So I want to thank you both so much for joining us this evening and everyone who came tonight to make this so incredibly special. Especially those of you who asked a question. That's always so wonderful to have an understanding of what the audience is looking at and hearing as well. So I hope that all of you will join me next year, beginning in March, when I will host Appalachia's beloved George Ella Lyon and Dr. Taylor Bias. Next season will also include some amazing folks such as Jennifer Franklin, J.D. Issop, David Hassler, Mandy Fugate, and Torley Bush, among others. A handful of those folks are deeply Appalachian, so I'm excited for you to hear them. Torley is becoming famous for a poem that he wrote to J.D. Vance. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll say until we meet again, friends, I wish you all a peaceful holiday season and a manageable easing into your new year. Be well and good night.